What is up, YouTube? And welcome back. Today, we are learning about a judge that was apparently ruthless that will impact gaming. I am out of the loop with gaming news, so yeah. Let's see what it's about.
More than almost anything we talk about on the channel, today's story is actually going to tangibly impact you. So, for 5 years, there's been a battle waging at the highest levels of the games industry. It's massive, it's between Apple, it's between Epic, and it's around the principle of fairness. And the big news today is that Apple just lost. But they didn't lose because Epic Games outmaneuvered them or any kind of insane gigabrain play from Tim Sweeney.
A judge just blew up Apple's control of the App Store. Epic versus Apple judge Yvonne Gonzalez Rogers ruled that effective immediately, Apple's no longer allowed to collect fees on purchases made outside apps and blocks the company from restricting developers, pointing users to where they can make purchases outside of apps. Holy shit. That is, dude, I don't think people realize just how huge this is. This has nothing to do even with gaming. This has to do with general everything. That's insane! Like, even Patreon, right? Like, iOS users on Patreon had to pay extra, or the creator on Patreon had to make them, take a cut from their profit so that people on Apple wouldn't pay more. Now you can actually just go and tell people. I have this on, I have a subscribe here button on my Twitch that's literally just for people on mobile so they don't pay the extra fee. It's literally a huge thing that says subscribe here in caps locks that people can click on. That takes them to the browser version where it's cheaper. And for those of you that are watching this and have no clue, when you're on mobile, you pay 30% extra because you're paying to either Apple or to Google. So yeah.
No,
this is huge.
Because, in the words of the judge presiding over this decision, Apple leadership, quote, outright lied under oath, and in deciding not to comply with legal injunctions, Tim Cook, quote, chose poorly.
That's actually hilarious. The cook chose poorly. Sheesh. Dude, I feel bad whenever someone subs to me on mobile, okay? It's like, that money goes to Apple. Apple doesn't need more money. Oh, this is crazy. Let me go back.
Poorly.
Let me go back a tiny bit. Okay, so Apple willfully violated an injunction that came out of the Epic Game case. Apple Vice President of Finance Alex Roman outright lied about when Apple had decided to levy a 27% fee on some purchases linked to its app. Neither Apple nor its counsel corrected the now obvious lies. Sheesh.
And in deciding not to comply with legal injunctions, Tim Cook, quote, chose poorly. It's an ominous thing for a judge to be saying to you. This, though, is a dramatic case. It has impacts that will reverberate across the entire games industry, and honestly, far wider than that, meaning it truly will impact everyone.
That's what I said.
This video.
Like, honestly, I understand why he's saying that it will impact more people, right? He said the title still says gaming will change. It's not just gaming. It's anyone that has apps. Like, this is huge for non-gamers. This is huge for consumers everywhere.
Here's how all this started. So, Tim Sweeney is a man on a mission, and it's
globally, Apple's commission revenue from the App Store exceeded $27 billion in 2024. That's insane. Yeah, they take 30%. It's wild just how much they make out of it. And people don't realize it. People are like, they just assume that the money will go to the creator, right? Like to the developer of the app, to like the creator you're supporting on Twitch, on Patreon, whatever.
It's a mission that's cost him and his company more than $1 billion over the last 5 years. It's fair to say that he's pretty committed. Now, 5 years ago is when he decided that Apple and Google's exclusive storefronts on their mobile platforms were in fact unreasonable monopolies. in his opinion. Essentially, he says that they don't earn their 30% fee, rather they impose it, and that because of that, they're restricting how developers could make money and what sort of deals that they could actually offer to consumers. So what he decided to do was force their hand. So he started something called Project Liberty, and here's how it worked. Fortnite suddenly got an option where users could buy currency directly from Epic. Right? Directly, not through your Apple payment or Google payment thing. That, of course, meant that Apple and Google immediately booted Fortnite because it did break their store policies. And this is exactly what Tim Sweeney actually wanted. He wanted his game to be kicked off. And we pretty much know that because Epic immediately filed lawsuits that they had been preparing, and these were designed to force the stores to change those policies. Now, in the case of Google, it actually went so much better than any of us could have expected. Evidence actually emerged that certain developers like Activision had been paid not to rock the boat, and that they deleted documents and were—
Wow, I did not know that. Damn.
Evidence actually—
Fortnite developers said Google paid the equivalent of $360 million to Call of Duty as part of a broad agreement to not make a rival app store. To be fair, everyone has fucking app fatigue at this point. Like, people don't want more apps. They don't want more ways to play games. They just want one freaking structure. That's why we have, like, it's not even gaming fatigue. It's just app fatigue in general. Like, you have so many services for, like, watching TV shows. You have Disney, you have the Netflix, Hulu, and whatever, Crunchyroll, and whatever the heck else there is in the world. And it's just too many. I can't even keep track of all the apps that exist. And I'm just like, is it so hard for people to stop being so greedy? So bloody greedy that we can't just have, one store.
Emerged that certain developers like Activision had been paid not to rock the boat, and that they deleted documents and were broadly proven to have acted unfairly. They lost on all counts as determined by a jury. The platform was opened up to new stores, and Google have appealed. It was a complete win for Epic, but their fight against Apple is an entirely different story. Things have begun to look quite bad for Epic. You see, the outcome of that initial trial, the original one, was an almost complete defeat for Epic Games.
I think, like, they can't retaliate the way you're saying, Exelion. Like, if you get shadow banned with your app and it doesn't get featured in the store, that's grounds for another lawsuit.
They basically could not prove being the emphasis word there, that any kind of monopoly or unfair action was going on. But there was one exception. An injunction was placed against Apple, and this was to end anti-steering provisions. You might think, what is anti-steering? Well, it's actually pretty simple. So basically, it meant that Apple could no longer prevent developers from directing users to make purchases outside of the store. So basically, steering you, the customer, somewhere else. So as an example, that would be buying V-Bucks in Fortnite through a web client rather than through Apple's purchasing system, which would thus avoid Apple's 30% cut. Now, at the time, the judge said that Apple should be entitled to something, but that they can't force people to use their in-app purchase systems. Apple then spent 3 years appealing, and it's Apple, they can afford lawyers, but they really got nowhere on that front. And this is when that same judge came back and filed a new injunction against Apple for their behavior in the last 3 years. And this one truly is remarkable, and depending on how things shake out, there could even be a criminal component. It's quite wild. So, it wasn't just for a lack of compliance with the original order, but for contempt of court, which is usually frowned upon. So much so that they've been referred to the US Attorney's Office.
Apple willfully chose not to comply with this court's injunction. It did so with the express intent to create new anti-competitive barriers, which would by design and in effect maintain a valued revenue stream. A revenue stream previously found to be anti-competitive. That it thought this court would tolerate such insubordination was a gross miscalculation. As always, the cover-up made it worse. For this court, there is no second bite at the apple. Damn, the judge really has snark. I love that.
To consider criminal contempt proceedings. that would be dramatic. Now, the judge essentially was not pleased that Apple implemented new costly fees around off-app purchases, where basically they were effectively replacing one anti-competitive process with another, meaning of course, devs lose, but also us customers lose. And while they were doing all that, they were also misleading the court over what they were doing. Here's a quote. That it thought this court would tolerate such insubordination was a gross miscalculation.
Yeah, I
As
love
always, the
that.
cover-up made it worse. For this court, there is no second bite of the apple. Yeah, GG, Judge. Quite the singer. So she laid out then some clear rules. These are practices that Apple are banned from. Number 1, imposing a fee in purchases made outside an app. That means that they have no reason, therefore, to track those purchases, the ones made outside an app. Ban number 2, setting conditions on how devs can direct users outside of an app, including restricting how links work. Basically, you know those design anti-patterns that are just trying to get you, the consumer, to clearly do something by, making a link look weird or a misleading design, that sort of thing. Third, banning certain types of app from directing users to outside purchases. And finally, using, quote, emotive language to persuade consumers to remain in the in-store purchase system. Basically, scaring people who don't know better.
Damn.
And, well, we've actually seen Apple do
They did that? That's crazy. Holy shit.
similar things, saying you can go and make a purchase, not using the App Store, but, the App Store is very secure and very safe, which, to an average person who's not tech savvy, could basically look like it's Apple saying, hey, you could get scammed if you don't click this link. P.S. This link gets us lots of money too. And of course, the reason why these things are banned is, because Apple had been doing all of these things. That's what's led to this whole case. Now, in response, they have now began complying and appealing. It'll be interesting to see how malicious their compliance is. I imagine
Apple asks that the court wait. Apps can now link out. Apps can encourage use of alternate payment methods. Sheesh.
Complying and appealing.
Apple is fighting a ruling. Exercising control over core aspects of its business operations. Wow. Yeah. The new ruling blocks them from exercising control. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, poor Apple. Boo-hoo-hoo. They cannot chat. Poor Apple. Small indie company. They can't do business. If people choose to, purchase where it's cheaper and better for them. So unfair. Oh, I can't believe it. These poor people that charge an arm and a leg for everything. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how malicious their compliance is. I imagine it will be as malicious as
Very.
It be possible without getting in even more trouble. But all of this is happening while the rest of the industry is licking its lips. Some developers already have updates to go on this. Spotify were a major one. They framed this as a huge consumer win, which in fairness, I would say it absolutely is. Now we can do things like manage our subscriptions in an app. We can use different...
Whoa! You can manage your subscription? Dude, you couldn't even do that. Like, you know how annoying and obnoxious it is on Twitch? You can't manage your phone subscription on your browser. You have to go on your phone for your specific phone subscription. It's so obnoxious. And I'm like, wait, we can manage that now? That's why you don't use Apple products. I'm sadly forced to use Apple products. I haven't, I'm an Android girly. I understand the power in a lot of Apple stuff. And being inside their hub, it's really nice and cozy. So I understand why people do it. And tech-wise, they have some really cool shit going on for them. But I am pretty much forced right now because there is no better tracking software. So I have a work phone, which tracks my face, hence why I have good tracking and even better tracking once you'll see the 3D. It's absolutely crazy just how good it is. And that's why I have Apple. Yeah. The iPhone for tracking.
Different payment options, and we can see costs. You can now buy Kindle books in the Kindle app. Patreon memberships are no longer marked up on iOS.
See, this is what I meant by the Patreon thing. Like, we had the stupid markup thingy.
To counteract the store tax, and lots of things. But of course, let's bring it back to Tim Sweeney and Epic Games. So, the Epic Games Store mobile version already existed as of last year, but now they are really ramping things up. Within a week of the ruling, Epic announced their web store fee would drop to 0% for your first million in revenue, with that starting this June. That's obviously pretty awesome if you're a dev. Plus, much like they've done with the Epic Online Services stuff, what they've done with the store is they've built a solution that people can use regardless of platform. So, be it Google, be it Apple, anything. But more than that, it doesn't need to be the literal Epic Games Store. That's because web shops can basically run on their infrastructure, and that will let any developer go outside Apple's payment system with no fuss.
Sheesh.
Yes, Tim Sweeney's definitely taken this one personal.
He took it. He's going for the throat. He's like, you know what? I don't like your business practice, and I have the money to fuck around and mess things up for you. Damn! He's like cutthroat, literally cutting the legs off of them and going, it's my turn.
And you know what? I'm here for the drama. Anyway, it is great for devs, but players are also being incentivized here, where you're going to get 5% reward points through purchases on those shops and the Epic Games Store, but that's boosted to 20% until the end of August. So that essentially is the big clapback against Apple.
Wow.
But there is the other thing, the Fortnite. So Tim Sweeney has...
Fortnite kids being useful to society. Let's go. I never in a million years, like, if you told me this is what Fortnite would lead to, I'm a backer of the original Fortnite, you know, the pre-battle royale Fortnite. Never in a million years did I think this is where Fortnite would take us. What the fuck? It's crazy, man. I'm just like, literally, if you go back in time and you tell me this, I'll look at you and go like, huh?
Has proposed that Fortnite can return to app stores within weeks, like super quick, provided Apple allows them to do so. He also said he'll drop all litigation as...
Tim Sweeney, we will return Fortnite next week. Epic puts forth a peace proposal. If Apple extends the court's friction-free, Apple tax-free framework worldwide, we'll return Fortnite to the App Store worldwide and drop current and future litigation on the topic. No fees on web transactions. Game over for Apple tax. Apple's 15 to 30 junk fees are now just as dead here in the US as they are in Europe. Unlawful here, unlawful there. 4 years, 4 months, 17 days.
As part of a peace plan, provided Apple roll out this policy worldwide. And instead, as of the time of writing and recording this video, Apple have, went and blocked the Fortnite submission. Now, of course, all of this legal maneuvering so far is only in the US.
The situation changed the day after recording. Oof.
The current policy implementation on Apple's side only applies in that region right now. Fortunately, though, for those of us benefiting from EU rules, we've already had some things for months already, and Apple can't stop it. An absolute bomb was dropped in the industry in March of this year when both Google and Apple were found to be in breach of the Digital Markets Act by the EU Commission. And this is pretty damn big stuff. They can absolutely sting these companies. So with Google, it was for anti-steering practices, and Apple was for blocking third parties from interfacing with their systems. Now this follows last August's, told you we'd come back to that, ruling that Apple had to open their platform up to alternative stores, and another breach from Apple in April of this year.
I love the fact that finally we're getting judges that are not absolute boomers that have no idea about technology and the internet. I love that. I love that for us.
Also on steering. Now, in that last case, they also faced a cool little €500 million fine for what was absolutely flagrant breaches of the law. Apple are obviously appealing because that's what you do when you're a company But there's a clear thing, there's a clear trend. The
Mm-hmm.
tide is absolutely shifting. Now, it's not going to happen in all regions, but we are seeing regulation over major platforms to protect consumer interests from companies who otherwise would control them. So, between that and, I guess, a billionaire slap fight led by Tim Sweeney, well, look, we should take these wins when we can get them. Not to bring up an old drama, and it is a bit of a
Honestly,
different
yes.
story, but I suppose a little bit like how Hulk Hogan versus Gawker was, in fact, Peter Thiel versus Gawker. This is all kind of billionaire slap fights. Now, the thing with Tim
It
Sweeney,
really
right, he
is.
does have good principles. There are good principles that he talks about, right? And yes, it's good he's trying to hold Apple to them.
Let's be real. He just got annoyed at the fact that they were taking a bit too big of a bite out of his pie. And he's like, you know what? I can get the entire pie. So he eh. Everything is the tragedy of the commons. Oof.
Those. But that does not make Tim Sweeney automatically on your side.
No,
Sometimes
not at
it just so
all.
happens
Like,
that
look at how Fortnite is. Look at how much freaking ads do you have in it. Look at what it's devolving into, and look what's happening in overall. Like, he's not a friend, but a win is a win.
aiming at the same target. Now, he will end up benefiting from this massively and in a financial way. And of course, that's because his company is the one building the wraparound solutions that power these out of app purchases. And that's really big.
Yep.
And that means that we can appreciate the consumer good that this does. We absolutely can. And the work that the regulators are doing to break down these walled gardens. And in an ideal world, right, once the walled garden is so big and so ubiquitous, you might have to, restrict the freedom of Apple to go and run a monopoly, because not only will it be good for consumers, it will also be good for competition. But I also do think, Standard Oil gets broken up. Who's left with the money to gobble up all the assets? Oh, it's the same people. So there's always that thing then where you can have these good pro-consumer regulations, but it's the incumbents with the resources who are immediately able to get around them or exploit the new opportunity. And Epic Games basically, doing its store as a backend to do payment providing for everybody else. Well, while it is good,
who's gonna take the fees from there?
It also does disproportionately benefit Tim Sweeney. So, Tim Sweeney, you know what? You have led to a domino of events that I think is absolutely good for consumers, and I think it's good for developers. But
hopefully he doesn't get greedy.
Critical of you. And on the topic of the good guys being, let's just say, a little bit rumbly, okay, we have to talk about Capcom, and the good news is you can actually watch that video right now. The link is about to replace.
Oh god, not Capcom. I mean, I have my pet peeve with Capcom, so I'm curious. Now I have to watch that too, god damn it. That being said, I really enjoyed learning about this. That's a huge win, regardless of how you look at it. If they don't manage to appeal it successfully and it actually stays in effect, that is a huge win for consumers. Like 30% not being imposed upon you, and you having the opportunity to like choose for yourself if you want to like be inconvenienced slightly, like, do a payment in 2 extra minutes for like a reduction of price, right? It's huge. It's really big. So I will take the win. Hopefully in 10 years from now, we won't be like, shit, now we have fees from this other place. But c'est la vie. People are definitely way too greedy, man. That's what I'm learning. Like, they're billionaires and they're full of money, and they're so greedy over like what is essentially scraps to them. But, what do I know, man? I grew up thinking teamwork is important and sharing is caring, and that we shouldn't just completely cut people off and be a monopoly. But yeah. Thank you, YouTube, for hanging out. Thank you for watching. And if you managed to make it all the way to the very end, which is unlikely, the word of the day is cheese. Until next time. Ba, ba, da, 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 da.